I can't even believe what went down last week. It was like something out of a horror movie, except it was real life, my life. I was just doing my usual grocery run. I needed some milk, snacks, the basics. But little did I know that trip would turn into one of the scariest experiences I've ever had. I was just walking through the aisles, casually grabbing stuff off the shelves. I was lost in my own world, thinking about what to make for dinner, when I noticed this guy. He was standing a bit too close for comfort, and it gave me this weird vibe. My instincts were screaming at me, telling me to be cautious. I started walking a bit faster, hoping he would notice that I was onto him and back off, but he stayed right behind me, like a shadow that wouldn't go away. I tried to brush it off, maybe he was just getting stuff from the same aisle. But every time I turned, there he was, lurking. Technically, he hadn't done anything illegal yet, but I still knew something was off. My heart was pounding, and my hands were clammy as I hurried through the store, grabbing what I needed as fast as I could. I felt like I was in some kind of twisted game, with him tailing me every step of the way. Finally, I headed to the checkout, praying that he'd disappear. But as I stood in line, I could feel him staring at me. It was like he was undressing me with his eyes, and I could barely stand still. I paid for my stuff in record time, practically throwing my money at the cashier, and rushed out of the store. As I walked to my car, I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see him right there. My heart was still racing, and I fumbled with my keys. My hands were shaking as I tried to unlock the car door. I practically jumped into the driver's seat, locked the doors, and took a deep breath. Just as I was starting to calm down, I noticed him. He was standing a few cars away, just staring at me. I could feel his eyes burning into me, and panic surged through me like a tidal wave. "Yo, what's your problem?" I shouted, my voice trembling with a mix of fear and anger. He didn't respond, just kept staring, that creepy grin on his face. I slammed the car into gear and peeled out of there, my heart racing as I left him behind. But it wasn't over. Oh no, it was far from over. I drove straight to my apartment complex, hoping to shake off the unease that was clinging to me like a second skin. But as I pulled into the parking lot, I saw him again. He was standing by the gate, like he had been waiting for me. My blood ran cold, and I felt a lump in my throat as I realized he had followed me here. I parked the car as far away from him as I could and hurried toward the gate, my heart pounding like a drum. I punched in the code, my fingers trembling, and the gate started to creak open. But just as I was about to slip inside, he lunged forward, trying to slip through before the gate closed. I screamed, adrenaline surging through me as I shoved the gate closed with all my strength. He was trapped on the other side, his face contorted with rage as he tried to force his way in. I backed away, my breath coming in ragged gasps, my mind racing as I tried to figure out what to do. "Stay the hell away from me," I yelled, my voice was shaky but defiant. He glared at me, his fists pounding on the gate in frustration. I could see the fury in his eyes, and it sent a chill down my spine. "I just wanted to talk," he spat, his voice dripping with venom. "Yeah, well, I don't want to talk to you." I shot back, my heart still racing. He finally gave up, his rage giving way to a cold, calculating look. He stared at me for a moment longer, his eyes burning into mine, before turning and walking away. I watched him go, my whole body trembling with a mix of fear and relief. I stayed by the gate until I was sure he was gone, until the only sound was the distant hum of the city. And then, I finally let out a shaky breath, my hands still trembling as I unlocked the gate and rushed inside. I don't know what that guy wanted or why he was following me, but one thing was for sure. I was shaken to my core. I locked every door, every window, and spent the night on high alert, my heart pounding at every little sound. I'll never forget that night, the night I stared fear in the face and refused to back down. It's been about a week, and I haven't seen him since.
Let me tell you about one of the craziest days of my life. I was just out for a regular walk with my dog, Beasley, a fluffy ball of energy that could light up any room. We had our usual routine, hit the streets, let Beasley do his business, and just enjoy the city vibes. So there I was, strolling down the block with Beasley trotting by my side. The sun was dipping low on the horizon, casting a warm glow over the busy streets. People were bustling around, lost in their own worlds, and the hum of city life was like a familiar melody in my ears. Beasley was having a blast, his tail wagging like crazy as he sniffed every lamppost and fire hydrant in sight, and we were in our zone. As we turned a corner, I noticed a guy standing there, leaning casually against a wall. He seemed harmless enough, jeans, hoodie, and a cap pulled low over his eyes. He glanced up at me, and there was something about his gaze that gave me pause. But I'm usually a pretty friendly person, so when he asked if he could pet Beasley, I nodded. "Sure, he's friendly," I said, giving him a small smile. The guy crouched down, and Beasley went right up to him, tail wagging like crazy. They seemed to hit it off, and I relaxed a little. People loved Beasley, he had that effect on them. But then, out of nowhere, the guy's demeanor shifted. He looked up at me with this strange glint in his eyes, and before I could react, he lunged at Beasley, grabbing his leash and yanking it out of my hand. "What the hell, man?" I shouted, my heart racing as I tried to grab the leash back. But the guy was strong, and I was caught off guard. He smirked at me, a twisted grin that sent a chill down my spine. "Thanks for the dog, sweetheart," he sneered, his grip on Beasley tightening. My mind was racing, my heart pounding as I watched in disbelief. This couldn't be happening. Beasley was my buddy, my partner in crime, and I wasn't about to let some random stranger snatch him away. "Let go of him," I yelled, my voice tinged with panic and rage. But the guy just laughed, a cold, eerie sound that echoed in the air. And then he turned and started walking away, Beasley struggling and whimpering in his grasp. I was on autopilot, my instincts kicking in as I sprinted after them. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear the city noise around me. I screamed for help, hoping someone, anyone, would intervene, but the streets seemed emptier than ever. I had no choice but to keep running, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I chased after the guy who had taken my best friend. The world blurred around me as I focused solely on the figure ahead. I could feel my muscles burning, my body pushed to its limits, but I refused to give up. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the guy stopped in a desolate alleyway a few miles away from where he had taken Beasley. He looked around, seemingly satisfied that no one was following him. Beasley was still whimpering, his eyes wide with fear as he huddled in the guy's arms. I skidded to a halt, my chest heaving, sweat dripping down my forehead. My eyes locked onto Beasley, and my heart ached at the sight of him in the clutches of this stranger. "Give me back my dog," I demanded, my voice quivering with a mix of anger and desperation. The guy chuckled, his gaze fixed on me with a twisted amusement. "You really thought you could catch up to me, huh?" I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms as I fought to keep my composure. "Just let him go. He's not yours." He hesitated for a moment, his grip on Beasley loosening slightly. I took a step forward, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. "Come on, man. He's just a dog. What do you want with him?" I pleaded, my voice cracking. The guy's expression shifted, his gaze flickering with something that resembled regret. And then, almost as suddenly as he had taken him, he released Beasley. My heart soared as Beasley stumbled toward me, tail wagging frantically. I scooped him up into my arms, tears streaming down my face as I held him close. He nuzzled against me, his warm fur a comforting presence against my skin. I could hardly believe it. Beasley was back, safe and sound. The guy didn't stick around. He turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving me alone with Beasley in that dimly lit alleyway. I held on to Beasley tightly, my heart still racing, my breath coming in ragged gasps. As I walked away from that alley, Beasley nestled against me. I couldn't help but reflect on how close I had come to losing him. The city that I loved, that had always felt like home, suddenly felt a little darker, a little more dangerous. But I knew one thing for sure, I would do whatever it took to keep Beasley safe. Ever since that day, I've been apprehensive about letting people near my dog. It seems like the man had no real intention of keeping Beasley. He was just a sick man playing a sick game, and it's crazy that there really are people like that in this world.
The story I'm about to tell you happened to me a couple of years ago. I woke up that morning feeling energized and ready to take my regular morning walk through the city. At the time, I lived in Brooklyn. I threw on a hoodie and my worn-out sneakers and stepped out into the concrete jungle that was my home. As I walked down the crowded streets, I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was being watched. It was the kind of sensation that sends shivers down your spine, making your heart race a little faster. I quickened my pace, my eyes darting around, trying to spot whatever set off my internal alarm. That's when I saw him, a tall figure, cloaked in shadows, leaning against a graffiti-covered wall. He had a predatory grin on his face, his eyes fixed on me like a lion eyeing its prey. I could feel his gaze piercing through me, making my skin crawl. My instincts told me to turn and walk away, but something about his gaze held me in place. It was like I was trapped in a spider's web, unable to escape. He pushed himself off the wall and started to approach, his steps deliberate and measured, like a predator closing in for the kill. "Yo, what you looking at?" I tried to sound tough, masking the unease that was gnawing at me from the inside. He chuckled, a low, menacing sound that sent chills down my spine. "Just admiring the view, my friend." I forced a smirk, but my heart was racing. "Well, admire from afar, aight? I ain't here for no drama." He stopped a few feet away, his eyes never leaving mine. "Oh, I think you might be just what I'm looking for." I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. "Look, man, I ain't got time for whatever you're selling, I'm out." I turned to walk away, but a strong hand grabbed my arm, yanking me back. My heart was pounding now, fear coursing through my veins like a drug. I tried to break free, but his grip was like a vice. "You think you can just walk away from me, huh?" His voice was a deadly whisper, his grip tightening with each passing second. "Let go of me," I shouted. I could feel panic taking over. People were passing by, oblivious to the danger that was unfolding right in front of them. He leaned in close, his hot breath tickling my ear. "You're gonna regret crossing paths with me, kid." I mustered all the strength I had and managed to break free from his grasp. Without looking back, I sprinted down the street, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. I didn't stop until I reached the safety of a crowded cafe, where I collapsed into a chair, gasping for breath. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions, fear, anger, confusion. Who was that guy? What did he want with me? And why did his words send a chill down my spine like nothing I'd ever experienced before? For days, I couldn't shake off the encounter. Every shadow, every unfamiliar face sent my heart racing. I became hyper-aware of my surroundings, constantly looking over my shoulder. Sleep became a distant memory as nightmares plagued my nights, each one starring that sinister stranger. I confided in a close friend, hoping that sharing my experience would provide some relief. She listened intently, her brow furrowed with concern. "You gotta be careful out there," she warned, her voice soft but serious. "There are some real dangerous folks lurking in the shadows." I nodded, my throat tight with unease. "I know. But what if he comes back? What if he's still watching?" She reached out and squeezed my hand. "We'll watch out for each other, okay? And if he ever shows his face again, we'll make sure he regrets messing with you." Her words offered some comfort, but the fear still lingered in the back of my mind. The city that I once thought of as my playground had transformed into a sinister maze, where danger could strike from any corner. As the weeks went by, the memory of that terrifying encounter began to fade, replaced by the rhythm of everyday life. But I couldn't shake off the feeling that the stranger's ominous warning was still echoing in the shadows, a constant reminder that the urban jungle held secrets that were far more sinister than I could ever imagine.